Good morning, you all. Today, once again, we will start with the chapter number 4, Basic of Operating System. This video is the part 2 of the chapter 4. The topic which we will discuss today is need for operating system, shell and kernel, functions of operating system, and device drivers. Let's start. What is the need of an operating system? We have already learned that the hardware is nothing but finely designed machinery. A machine is ultimately a machine only, which always made to work. In case of computers, either we accomplish anything or somebody else actually provide the work to us, or you can rather say accomplishes the work for us. Here, the some other person which accomplishes the work in place of us is actually the operating system. It recognizes and installs peripheral devices, handles the input output, that's the primary function, loads and runs other software applications, moves the data to and from the hard disk, allows software to communicate with the hardware, manages files and other folders, share out system memory, handles system errors and alert the user, manages system security. These all topics we have already covered. Let's see what else we need to understand. Operating system acts as the secretary of ours. The operating system does the job for us. The operating system itself decides how to do, what to do, and when to do as we set the primary goal to the operating system. The operating systems let the computer system convenient to use for us. Means it actually let us use the computer in efficient manner. It helps us to use the computers in proper way to get the better results from the applications which we run into the operating system. It uses the hardware to manipulate all the inputs which has been inserted by the users. As we know, an operating system is a program which acts as an interface between the user and the hardware. It facilitates convenient access of hardware by the user by providing facilities interact with user in user's language with almost or at most user friendliness. Means it actually provide us kind of a platform where we easily understand what window or what the operating system want to communicate with us. Second, improve the efficiency of the system by managing various resources of the computer, that the computer's CPU or the memory to give optimal performance from the computer. Means it manages the resources which are either attached or within the computer to give us better results. It provides security to the system and its program and data by ensuring the authorized user use the system through valid user accounts. The last, emulate features not available in hardware such as giving impression of having more memory, a concept called virtual memories. Now, let us understand what is shell and what is kernel. We have already read that the operating system work as an interface in between user and the computer system, or you can rather say the hardware. Now, if it is an interface in between the hardware and the human being, or you can rather say the user, then there should be some layer where the user to interact with the operating system, and going to be another one where the hardwares react or do the transactions with the operating system, right? So where the user interacts with the operating system is called the shell, and where the hardware and the operating system do their own transactions, that's the part called as kernel. Let's understand them in a better manner. The shell first. The shell acts as interpreter which does these things. There are three different things which are given in your book. The first one as get the commands or the instructions from the user. What is command or the instructions? Those are basically the inputs which the user gives. Who does or who takes those instructions? The shell. Translate the received commands or instructions into the machine language. After receiving the instructions and the command, what it does, it converts the language or user understandable language into the machine understandable language, and that's the second job of the shell. Now the third job, pass the translated command to the kernel to get it done, means let the kernel process the inputs as those inputs are already converted into machine understandable language. Then the kernel receives the data from the user through the shell. Now let's see the kernel. A kernel is the core part of an operating system. Core part means the internal part. It functions at a basic level, communicating with the actual hardware and managing the resources such as the CPU and the memory. It works as an interface between the user application and the hardware. What does it mean? As we have already discussed the work of the shell, after passing on the commands to the kernel, what kernel does? Kernel actually start transacting with the CPU, start processing the things with the CPU. Means the actual hardware use it to do the conversations with the kernel. It actually refers the hardwares and instruct them how to perform, how to process the data, or you can rather say it modulates the hardware, it uses the hardware to process the instructions which are given by the user. The role of the kernel is to manage communication between user level applications and the hardware. So it is responsible for carrying out important operating system tasks like process management, device input output management, interrupt and event handling, memory management, timer management, and the file system. If a single module carries out all above mentioned tasks of kernel, such a kernel is called, what is written there? Monolithic kernel. What is it? Monolithic kernel. If kernel contains minimalistic module for basic functions only and gets other services done through separately written specified software, then this type of kernel called microkernel. So, monolithic and the microkernels. Now let's discuss the functions of operating system. The function of operating system broadly falls into three categories: essential function, monitoring function, and service function, where the essential functions ensure effective utilization of computer system resources. Monitoring functions monitor and collect information related to system performance, and service function enhances the facilities provided to the users. Let us understand major functions of an operating system. First, processor management. The processor management function of an operating system allocates the important computer resource, which is the CPU. We all know about the CPU. The CPU is a resources which is responsible for performing any kind of a process or task inside the computer. So the first and the foremost work of the operating system is managing that CPU, the processor, the processing time, right? It actually allocates the CPU time, the CPU, to the various running programs or applications. A running program or application is also called a process. This function of an operating system prepares schedules, controls, and monitors the job or the processes submitted for execution to ensure the most efficient processing. A job is a collection of one or more related programs and their data, which has been inputted by the user, or which inputs are being given by the user to process. Now the next one, memory management. The memory management function of an operating system manages another critical resource of computer, the computer memory. This function allocates memory to the running processes and deallocates the memory from the process. What is it? Allocation and the deallocation of the memory? It means whenever a process starts, it actually acquires some of the spaces inside the primary memory devices. The work of the operating system is to provide those memories inside the memory devices or the primary memory devices to the process which is running at the present time. Now, while the process come to an end, the data, or you can rather say the answers or the processed data, actually transferred to the user, or you can rather say it get displayed onto the displays and all. Then after finishing every task of that process, it deallocates the memory as well, means उस पर्टिकुलर मेमोरी को खाली भी कर देता है. सिर्फ वो मेमोरी एलोकेशन ही नहीं करता, डी एलोकेट भी कर देता है, क्योंकि अब ज़रूरत नहीं है उस प्रोसेस को किसी भी तरह का मेमोरी का, जिस वजह से वो उस मेमोरी को डी एलोकेट भी कर देता है. नाउ नेक्स्ट वन इज द फाइल मैनेजमेंट. The file management function of an operating system governs the permanent storage and retrieval of the data from an external storage devices. Wait, let us understand. File management means transferring of files from the computer to maybe an external sources, or maybe inside the computer system only, from one drive to another, from one folder to another, from a secondary memory devices to another portable secondary memory devices. So that's basically the transferring of data. It ensures the proper saving of the data at the appropriate location. What is that appropriate location? Means the place where user is desiring to keep the data. It is also responsible for retrieval of the data from the storage devices whenever the user require. It is responsible for retrieving that data, means accessing that data, opening that data once again after getting saved. Device management. This function of an operating system is responsible for proper handling of input and output devices. These functions ensure smooth reading of the data from the input devices and sending the data to the correct output devices. This is basically called as device management. User interface. The operating system establish a standard means of communication between users and their computer systems. It does this by providing a user interface and standard set of commands that controls the hardware. UI, where the user actually interacts with the computer system. The clicks, the windows which appear in front of you, the text boxes which receives the data or the text from you, alphanumeric characters or symbols from you as you type down them, the little icons which waits for your click or double click. If you double click upon those icons, it get ignited, it get executed, some or other application get opened. So these all activities actually used to be performed by the user upon the user interface, which has been provided by the operating system for easy maintenance, or you can rather say for the ease of use of the operating system. Previously, in the character user based operating systems, or where we need to write down the commands one after another to execute or to accomplish any task into the computer, like the Unix or the DOS. These were the operating system where the user need to remember the commands and type down them and put the enter to execute any work, any task inside the computer system. Or they need to make the log files to run them, or the batch files to run them one by one to execute the series of commands. Here, we need to only select here and there, click here and there upon the icons or any particular substance, and the work used to be done, the command used to get fired. So that's the benefit of the user interface, where the user interacts with the operating system. Device drivers. That's the last topic of this video. We all know that the operating system has part that can deal with and interact with hardware. Apart from motherboard, there are many other hardware devices that are attached from outside. That's also called as the peripheral devices, like the printers, scanners, the mouses, everything. These all devices are actually attached to the computers, and they need a kind of an interface, they need a kind of a program which let the computer understand the type of work or the workabilities of those peripheral devices. Means which kind of a command they accept, which kind of a task they do for which command. Means, let's say mouse, when we scroll the mouse, it actually moves the cursor from one end to another. Then how the computer or the operating system will understand the mouse gone which side? It need a kind of a program which we called as device drivers need to be installed inside the operating system. Then only the device drivers decodes the movement of the mouse and send the information to the operating system which way the mouse gone, which click is happened, whether the right one or the left one, whether the double click or simple moving of the mouse. These all use it to be decoded by the device driver of that particular mouse and use it to be sent to the computer or to the operating system. Operating system then does what? It waits and smiles? No, it actually changes the mouse positions or actually executes those commands on the screen. Similarly, the printers, scanners, every other hardware used to have their own set of commands that's related to the work they perform as. Scanner scans. Maybe there are so many functionalities or add-on functionalities inside the scanners, the DPIs in which they scans, the power, or you can rather say capabilities of that scanners or the limitations of that scanners. Everything used to be coded inside a program by the manufacturer of that hardware, and those are called as the drivers of those hardwares, which need to be installed inside the computing devices or inside, or those need to be attached with the operating system as we install them into the computer, to let the computer or to let the operating system understand what kind of work is being accomplished or can be performed by those devices. To interact with any type of hardware devices, the operating system's kernel need to speak in its own way to let that particular device understand what the kernel want to speak as. Every device is unique and works in a unique way. Thus, to help an operating system interact with it, every device comes with its specifically written programs called as device drivers. For example, you will find the external hardware devices like printers, displays, CD-ROMs, related USB sticks, Bluetooth devices. Every external devices, most of them use it to have their own device drivers which use it to come along with it as a CD or maybe through any net download. You can get these drivers maybe on net or off net through the series, but it used to be enclosed in every hardware devices. If you will purchase a monitor, let's say of LG, you will get diskettes inside of it, or you can simply go to the site of LG and can download the device driver of that particular monitor, which can be installed inside the operating system to let the operating system communicate with that LCD device, right? To understand how much functionality, how many functionalities that LCD device or LED device is having. Let's understand the picture which has been given in the right side. The first written as the application, then the operating system. Means application is communicating with the operating system. Application means, let's say I have opened a word pad or Word. I want to print a document which is opened in front of me. When I give the command to print, the operating system searches for the printers which are available or which are connected to the computer. Now, as the operating system try to connect with the printer while printing, it actually goes through the device driver which has been installed for that particular printer. When you choose that printer, the operating system actually tries to connect with the device driver that it can pass the commands, it can pass the documents to the actual hardware, means to the printer through the device driver, because whatsoever is written on the document can be decoded through the device driver only. Device driver only knows the instructions which need to be processed inside the hardware, inside that printer. Okay? Let's understand why do we need device drivers. A typical computing system deals with various kind of devices, and various kind of devices can be attached to a single computing system. In order to interact with every type of device, its operating system must have some code dealing with the type of device. As there are numerous hardware devices, including code of to interact with each of those type of devices will make the operating system very large and complex also, because there are so many manufacturers creating so many peripheral devices. Is it possible to keep all the drivers of all the manufacturers of all the peripheral devices? It's literally impossible. That's why the operating system not used to have these device drivers. Only some some kind of a logical device drivers which actually at least perform certain tasks, or you can rather say plug and play informations, plug and play codings used to be attached with the operating system. Only fewer drivers used to be loaded inside the operating system, or you can say those all devices used to have generic type of drivers. So these generic drivers are only used to be installed inside the operating system. Rest of them used to come with the hardwares only. मतलब आपने अगर खरीदा कोई प्रिंटर तो उसके साथ प्रिंटर का ड्राइवर आएगा, किसी भी ब्रांड का हो, चाहे वो आपने कोई स्पेशल डिवाइस खरीदा लेट्स से स्कैनर, तब उस स्कैनर की कंपनी ने आपको एक सीडी दे दिया, उसके अंदर उसके डिवाइस ड्राइवर्स होंगे. ठीक है. ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम के अंदर सारे के सारी कंपनी का सारे जितने भी दुनिया में अवेलेबल हैं पेरिफेरल डिवाइसेस सबका डिवाइस ड्राइवर्स नहीं होता, सिर्फ कुछ जेनरिक डिवाइस ड्राइवर्स उसमें इंस्टॉल्ड होते हैं. राइट. यू कैन सी इन द पिक्चर देयर आर फ्यू installations of the device drivers which are visible into the Windows control panel. अब छोटा सा कंट्रोल पैनल राइट साइड में देखो दिख रहा है, उसमें कैम कॉर्डर्स का कैमरा जो आपका लगा हुआ है उसका, उसके बाद माउस, प्रिंटर्स, ये सब का डिवाइस ड्राइवर्स जो इंस्टॉल है फैक्स का, वो सारे के सारे दिख रहा है आपको, राइट. दीज ऑल आर बेसिकली device drivers by which the operating system interacts with those hardwares. Okay. This is the end of today's session. In the next session, we will discuss about the next topic of operating system. Till then, bye bye.